Hello, we'll be discussing about the subject network security 18 EC 821 and the topic of we begin with module 1. So when you look into this is the syllabus. Module 1 comprises of the different types of attacks and what is an attack on a computer and what is the need for computer security on a network or on a computer, principles of security and the various types of attacks. So this is the initial topic which we are going to discuss with beginning with different types of attacks and the reasons for this. And the second module deals with transport level security, where the security has to be provided during transportation or in the transport layer, and the requirement is based on the web security considerations. So the web requires security and it is peer-to-peer network. Therefore, it starts with the server and the client security. And next, what the various layers in transport layer are the secure sockets layer, transport layer security. So using these two layers, the security is provided also with the various protocols like HTTPS and secure shell or SSH. And the third module is about IP security, where we understand with the overview of the IP security and what is the architecture, various modes of operation, what is a security association, what do you mean by an authentication header, encapsulation security payload, internet key exchange, etc. And the fourth module is all about intrusion and intrusion detection. So we'll find out who the intruders are, or in other words the hackers, and how to detect them. And you also have the software part, which is categorized as malicious software or malware, where the viruses and the related threats associated with viruses are discussed along with the countermeasures of avoiding viruses. And the fifth module is all about the firewalls. So the firewalls are protecting the network. Therefore, what is the need for firewalls? What are the characteristics of firewall? What are the different types of firewalls? And where should we locate the firewall? What are the different configurations? Like this, we will be discussing about various firewalls. So these are the 5 modules related to the subject called as network security. The textbook and the references are shown here. We have Computer and Network Security Principles and Practice by Pearson Education, and the author is William Stallings, which is a 5th edition. Along with this, we have Computer Cryptography and Network Security by Atul Kahate, 2003 edition, TMH. This is about the textbooks, and the reference textbooks are Cryptography and Network Security by Farazan, Tata McGraw-Hill, 2007. So along with the modules, the associated textbooks are specified, and that helps you to prepare. Right now, the module 1 is all about with the second textbook, Cryptography and Network Security. So now we begin with the topics. Attacks on computer and computer security, which is beginning with the topic called as need for security, followed by security approaches, principles of security, types of attacks, and this is referenced with respective to second textbook, that is Atul Kahate. Moving on to the next topic, we'll now focus on the types of attacks. First is something called as theoretical concepts with respect to the attack. As we have already seen, whenever you have loss of confidentiality and loss of integrity, loss of authentication, we have some errors. We call them as fabrication, modification, etc. So that is again dealt here. We'll briefly have a discussion on this and proceed further. Attacks are generally classified into 4 categories as mentioned earlier. So interception, As told, it is loss of confidentiality. So unauthorized party has gained access into a resource and it can just take the information. The person can keep quiet or it can entirely disrupt the functioning. So, but what the information which was supposed to be between two people is now also involving the third person. That is called as interception. So, fabrication is loss of authentication. So, origin is taken by somebody else, origin's custody is taken by somebody else, and the third person poses as an origin, and this is absence of authentication, or this is error called as fabrication. So this involves the creation of illegal objects on the computer system. So whenever somebody is taking the uh, role of what the intended person is supposed to do, then anything can happen. So attacker may add fake records to the database. He can rob, he can steal, he can disrupt the entire functioning. Therefore, we shouldn't allow the person to take his custody. Modification, this is loss of integrity. So as discussed already, modifying the contents of the database or the text is called as modification. Next is interruption. It is discussed that if you are not able to access the resources, unavailable, then we say that it is interrupted. The resources may become unavailable or it can get lost. So examples of interruption are causing problems to hardware device, erasing program data or operating system components. So you can't access the hardware device. As I told, if you want to print, you can't print. If you want to delete, you can't delete. If you want to log in, you can't log in. So these are, that is, virus attack is so strong or the hacker is so strong inside, he will never permit the accessibility or the availability to the user. So these attacks, these are some of the concepts behind the attacks, and this is broadly classified into two categories called as passive attack and active attack. So we have attacks. Attacks, as already shown here, is classified into passive and active attack, and we'll now understand what do you mean by passive attack and active attack. Passive attacks. Passive attacks are those wherein the attacker indulges in eavesdropping or monitoring of data transmission. So, what exactly happens in passive attack is the hacker or the third person is simply interested in eavesdropping, overhearing the conversation. He will not disturb the procedure, he will not do any sort of disruption, and he simply wants to know the information which is between two people has to be reached to him also, and he'll check what is the information going, to whom it is going, from where it is going, when it is going. He just wants to take the role of in playing with all the, he should know, his job is only to get updated about what is happening. He just wants to keep the information to himself. In other words, the attacker aims to obtain information that is in transit. So during transmission, whatever the information you have, that is to be known to the attacker, and then that kind of an attack is called as a passive attack. So the term passive indicates that the attacker does not attempt to perform any modifications. He is not performing any modifications. He is not disturbing. He is not doing anything. So he just wants to know the information. Therefore, passive attacks are harder to detect. You don't know who is the person who is overhearing your information. So passive attacks are harder to detect, and the general approach in terms of passive attacks is you have to prevent rather than detection. So you should see to it that whenever you're talking a secret information, see to it there is no third person. So you have to, since you can't detect where is the attack, who is that person who is indulging in all these activities, rather than finding out, you should try to prevent this type of attack. So such an attack is called as passive attack. And this is what are the different types of passive attacks, two subcategories. One is called as the release of message contents, and next one is traffic analysis. So as I told you, interception coming in between, loss of confidentiality is passive attack. Two types of attacks, release of message contents and traffic analysis. Now we will see what do you mean by release of message contents. For example, you have your information and it should be confined only between two people. But long back when we had this wired system, phone tapping or stealing the information, when two people are talking, you attach a recorder to the telephone device and take the information. All this were happening, and this was most of the times this was the big scandal. Therefore, this type of an attack is called as passive attack. When a confidential, normally when two people are into conversation. Another example of passive attack is when a confidential email message is sent to a friend. Desire is only one should be, he or she should be able to access. Otherwise, it is a security breach. So, release of message contents. So, whatever the information you have, you should only be having between two people. If it is going to the third person, it is called as release of message contents. So we can overcome this by using a coded language, and only that particular person can use this, and as a result it can be avoided. And a traffic analysis is during transmission this type of attack is going to happen, therefore it is called as release of contents and traffic analysis. So you have to see where and who is seeing the information, getting the information. That is the type of attack. So that has to be avoided only if you use a coded language and better algorithms to do that. So passive attacker can try to figure out similarities and come up with some sort of pattern, and this therefore only way to avoid the passive attack is you talk in a coded language which is known to the public, but still it is kept as a secret. Next we have active attacks. So active attacks are something uh, which can be detected but cannot be prevented. So what exactly is active attack? These are based on the modification of the original message. So how much ever care or how much ever security measures you ensure, there is always this type of attack. Therefore, you can't say that it cannot be prevented. Rather, it can be detected with some effort and attempts can be made to recover from them. So how do we, what exactly you mean by active attack? Active attack is categorized as masquerade attacks, modification attacks, and denial of service. So in masquerade attacks, you are trying to pose as another entity. So something where authentication is coming into picture. Instead of A sending the message to B, C will capture the message from A and C poses as A. This is called as masquerade. Another person entity, not the actual entity is involved in the conversation. It is the other person who takes the role of the actual entity. This is called as modification. This is called as the masquerade attack. Next we have modification attacks. So this is classified as replay attacks or and alteration of messages. Modification, so something where you are going to lose your actual message, integrity is lost. How is it? You can edit the text or edit the image or edit the figure and then send. That is called as alteration of message. The hacker will take the control of the origin, he will change the message and he will send the message. This is called as alteration of message. Next we have replay attack. So what do you mean by replay attack? For example, A and B are into the conversation. A would have told release some amount to B, and bank would easily know that this is a message sent from A and it will debit $100 from A's account and credit into B's account. This is fine. Okay, this is one time transaction. This same transaction, if it is done again, then it is called as replay. Now what happens in the second instance? First instance, A is doing the telling the bank to debit $100 from his account and put it into B's account. Now the hacker comes into picture. Hacker will alter the message. What is the message? Rather from the message, actual message which says that debit $100 from A's account and credit into B's account. This is the actual message. Now hacker will change this message telling that debit $1,000 from A's account and credit into C's account. So modification is done by the hacker. Modification of the message is done by the hacker, and the same message after alteration is sent to the person, sent to the bank, and bank would happily know that A is giving some information, because without the knowledge of the bank, hacker attacks. Therefore again the same information is debited. This is possible after altering. If not altered also, the same message is sent again. Debit $100 from A's account and credit into B's account. So actually it is twice the same message being sent. A would have been under the illusion that only $100 has been debited and credited into B's account. But actually, because of the hacker involved in this procedure, A would have lost $200 and $200 would be credited into B's account. So this is the problem if there is a replay attack. Next is denial of service. Fabrication causes attacks. As I told you, you are not able to access the hardware or the resources, and that is called as denial of service. You can't log in. Every time you try to log in, some rubbish pop-up window appears, which restricts you to enter. Your keyboard itself is not able to type. Your mouse itself is not able to click. All the resources, hardware resources, are restricted. There is other way that you can't edit any information. Editor also is attacked. So that is called as denial of service. So this is how the diagram with respect to active attacks are. You have three active attacks: masquerade, modification, denial of service, of which modification is further classified as alteration of message and replay attacks. So this diagram completely gives the picture of active attacks. Now what is masquerade? As I told you, A and B are into the conversation. C comes in between. He takes the control and claims that he is user A. So authentication is lost here. So an entity posing as another entity is called as masquerade. So user C might pose as okay, but what happens for B? B will always be under the illusion that A is sending me some information. But actually it is not A, it is the hacker C who has taken the control and poses himself as A. Next we have replay attack. So with an example, everything here is dealt. In a replay attack, a user sends and resends the same thing. So for example, user A wants to transfer some amount to C's account. So he sends the message to bank B requesting for funds transfer. C would capture this message and send a second copy. So again and again the same message is being sent, and therefore C would be benefited by having twice the amount received rather than once, and A would be at loss. So replay attack is again and again sending the same message. Here no modification is done, but what if modification is also there? That will also not be known at all. Alteration of message, as I told you, modification of the message. So here transfer the $1,000 to D's account, but hacker will capture this information, transfer $10,000 to C's account. So here the figure from 1000 is changed to 10,000, and to whom it should reach? From D's account it is going to C's account. So note that both the beneficiary and the amount have been changed instead of only one. So this is also possible, and this is called as alteration of message. Next type of attack, active attack, which is called as the denial of service. So this makes an attempt to prevent legitimate users from accessing some services. So legal people or the authorized people or the authorized users have no possibility of accessing some services or some devices. Then we call this as denial of service. For instance, an unauthorized user might send too many login requests to a server using random user IDs in quick succession, So it floods with the network and you're not able to log in. So this is the type of denial of service attack, and it is a type of active attack. Now this is the practical side of attacks. The attacks discussed earlier can come in a number of forms in real life. Definitely, in every day-to-day life, this attack is possible. They can be classified into two broad categories. So now we look into application level and network level. As we say right now, we simply discussed about the different types of active and passive attacks. Now we are focusing with respect to application level. As a whole, how the application is getting affected, and the entire network, how the network is getting affected, because you're completely transferring your information from one different vicinity to another different vicinity. So we will have a discussion on how it is going to affect. So we are now focusing on learning how the attacks are with respect to application and network. So now first we'll talk about the application level attacks. These attacks happen at an application level, in the sense that the attacker attempts to access, modify or prevent. So some application is going to be destroyed, and that is because of this attack. So whenever you're trying to access, you're not supposed to, but still when you access, this is an attempt to destroy the application. Hacker is not permitted, but still at the application level, if you are trying to uh, if the attack is trying to access, modify or prevent, that particular application is losing its value. And a suitable example here is when trying to obtain somebody's credit card information on the internet, or changing the contents of the message to change the amount in a transaction, etc. So the application here is the credit card. Credit card information is something which is being stolen, and that type of attack is called as application attack, which should not actually happen, but it is happening. At the network level, these attacks generally aim at reducing the capabilities of a network by a number of possible means. So the network is being disturbed. You restrict the network, you avoid the network, you avoid the transaction occurring from one network to another network, you route the destination. These are all the examples of network attacks. So these attacks generally make an attempt to slow down or completely bring to a halt. Many times, whenever results are being declared, VTU server goes down because many people are accessing. Probability is there may be a jam. So jamming is also one. It can intentionally happen. It can generally happen. Intentionally happening is called as a network attack. Note that this automatically can lead to application level attacks also, because once someone is able to gain access to a network, he or she is able to access, modify. So in other words, network is, we are intentionally making a hacker. So generally it happens, but when this is happening intentionally, we call it as an attack. Hacker tries to uh, reduce the speed in the network, and that means the hacker is having the control on the network. Once the hacker is having a control in that network, next level, application level attack is going to happen. It is prone for attack. So this is how we are going to classify the different types of attacks. One is called as the application level, and the next one is network level attacks. And associated, all the while we are talking only about the hacking and the hacker. So far whatever we have discussed is the physical attack or the manual attack, and next we will discuss about the virus attack, or something which is happening on the software. As already discussed, we were talking about hackers, and now we'll focus on the software attacks which is happening because of the virus. So what exactly is a virus? And there's also another category called as a worm. What are what do you mean by virus and worm, and what are the differences between these two? How exactly they work? All such things we are going to discuss here. So viruses and worms are two examples of software attacks. Such attacks can be introduced into a system by means of a disk that contains the unwanted logic concealed in useful software. So whenever you are inserting a pen drive or a disk, a CD or a floppy, there is a possibility of an attack which is through software, and that is because of virus and worms. They can also be inserted into a system across a network. Even in the network, you can just release the virus and the entire network is corrupted. So this is the work of a virus. So what exactly is a virus? It is a piece of a program code that attaches itself to legitimate program code and runs when a legitimate program runs. You have a normal program, addition of two numbers, a simple program. So 2 plus A, B, C, A, B, S. A, B are the two variables. S is the sum which is storing the result of A and B. In between, if you write destroy this particular drive, this is a code. So what exactly it is doing? This is a virus which has been running within a authenticated code, and the entire disk will be deleted. So this is how it comes and sits into the legal software or the legal code, and when you are executing that, it gets deleted. The function of the virus is to whatever it is supposed to do, it will get executed. So one can launch an application level attack or a network level attack using a virus. Virus can be used in the network level as well as the application level. It can infect other programs in that computer or the programs that there are in other computers also. It can be within the network and across the network. After deleting all the files from the current user's computer, the virus self-propagates. So by itself, it propagates. It just travels and it's sending its code to all users whose email addresses are stored in the current user's work. What not rubbish work it is supposed to do, it will do. So this is how a virus infected code looks. You have a simple task of adding x to y. As I told, addition of two numbers. After addition of two numbers, you are to supposed to print. You have some print job, and after that you have to close, and then you are ending. This is how a program flow goes on. Once you have a virus infected code, yes, you have add x to y addition, perform print job, okay. See, in between printing and closing, perform virus job. So what is the virus job? To destroy or to delete or to copy or to do some rubbish acts. So this is a virus infected code, and this is not at all noticeable. This is not at all noticeable. It just appears like a normal task. Perform print job, virus job, close job. So it appears to be a normal close, normal task. And when you see what is the virus job, what is that virus code being written? Delete all files. Okay, delete all the files. Send a copy of myself to all using this user's address book. So if it is an email, in the address book, the email addresses would be there. It also tells send this copy of myself, that is the virus, to all the people whose address is in the address book. So it is propagating by itself. It is going across the network within the network. So this is how the virus code comes and sits into the actual code, and this is how it is affecting the system. So the different in detail we'll study, but still we will have a brief discussion. Viruses undergoes four different stages: dormant phase, propagation phase, triggering phase, execution phase. Dormant phase. So dormant means almost in the sleep mode. The virus is idle. It gets activated based on some action, and the immediately it is activated till you specify. So if you have written a code telling that don't become active till dash date, so from tomorrow onwards you become active, immediately virus which is in sleep state will become active. Propagation phase. So this is the phase where the virus gets propagated. So the virus copies itself and each copy starts creating more copies. So it self propagates. Triggering phase, a dormant, as I told you, from the dormant phase going into triggering phase. On that particular date and particular time, the virus becomes active. That is called as triggering phase. A dormant virus moves into this phase when the event for which it is waiting is initiated. So it was waiting till dash date. That particular date it begins its action. Execution phase, this is the actual work of the virus which could be harmless. So what exactly is the task of the virus? To delete, to copy, to send the virus to address book, whatever the task it was supposed to do, it will do. Viruses are classified based on the following categories. Parasitic virus. So many different types of viruses are there. The first one is the parasitic virus. So parasite, as the name says, it is relying on a host. So it will not do anything on its own. Whatever the host is doing, it will do the same task. So this type of virus attaches to the executable files and keeps replicating.